Okay. So, to get this working, we should probably figure out why the name of the file isn't quite right when we save it. Like, it says, instead of PAINT5D, it says, like, PAIN5D. And it looks like it also is not consistently saving as well. Or maybe I just pressed the wrong button. So let's give this a run. Let's go over to this editor, and once we're in this editor, we're going to hit P for pattern, so P for pattern, and then O for output. O for output, then we're going to close it, and then we're going to look in the mod folder and see what we got. So we got PAINT5D, and when we open it up, it has this checker pattern, which I believe is like our default fill pattern that we were using to test with. So we got to figure out why that's the way it is. So first of all, what we could do is before we do our PAINT5D puts here, right, all this stuff, all this looping around here and doing this, we might want a confirmation that the canvas is actually getting cleared, because I don't think it is getting cleared. So we're going to return like this, and then we're going to try to save the file again. So we're going to delete this, and we're going to just rerun everything with this temporary return right here. So give it a run and just see what happens here. And I'm going to guess that it doesn't even get erased. I think something's happening. I don't know what's happening, but hopefully we can find out. So once we go over here, we're going to do P for pattern, P, and then O for output, O. And then we're going to close the window, close the terminal. Go into the mod folder. Okay, here's PAIN5D. Should be PAINT5D, but it's not. And yeah, it still has this like checker pattern here. It still has, that's not the pattern we're expecting. Now, file.png was a file that's saved based on the color we pick when we start up. That's perfectly fine. So something went wrong during this, and it looks to me that it's the default checker pattern, right? So we're going to remove this return and say that, you know what, this code is never getting executed. Well, it is getting executed. We know this function itself is getting executed. But for some reason, it's not because there's a lack of a return that there's a return variable mixed in there. So let's type default here. We have a lot of things called default. Default tile design fill pattern. Let's put a little breakpoint here, because we're going to have to come back to this quite often before we figure out what's going on. Yeah, so how are we going to figure this out? What do we think is going on? Well, first of all, besides the first problem, why not fix this problem here? PAINT5D, that's not the name of what we're saving. So what did we screw up with the file saver utility to do that? So in the logic where we kind of create the... where's FileBoy? So FileBoy, where we're kind of creating that file path, we're off by one somewhere, right? We got all those asserts, we thought we did a great job, and we still screwed something up. We're off by one. So if we look at this, you know, it doesn't look like a problem. This name base, name a file without extension, right? And that's supposed to be paint5d.png. Okay. And it's I minus whatever the heck, right? Oh, wait, but greater than or equal to this, right? We can even see that right here. It's greater than or equal to this. Less than or equal to name of file. So this base index... Well, what the heck is base, for a second? yeah, the base index, that's what we're expecting, the base max index. So then why is it not working properly? So, first of all, we can do some things here to help catch ourselves. Let's add some asserts in here and figure out where we're going wrong. So, first of all, let's do local index. So, int32 li, local index. Or actually, we could do this. We could make a variable called local index. So, you know, I don't know where we want to put this. I32, and why is this its own thing here? Gaia. I32, int32 local index. Local index, right? We'll call this local index. And then what we can do is, you know, li equals, you know, I minus 0 here. And then, if li is less than 0 or li is greater than this max index of the base, err li_oob from base. Right, we can add some just checking here. So now, the other thing is that maybe our indices are wrong. So the max index of the base is the len of base, and then the len name of file plus the len of base is this. Does that make sense? That seems sensible as well. And len base, do we have a max index of base? Yeah, len base minus 1. What about max index of the actual file name, right? So len name of file here. So we don't have that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this name of file, the length of the name of the file here, right, which is included in here. The name of the file with an extension. And we can use this length here, the length of the name of the file, to create another bounds check here. So we're going to say that, you know, li equals I minus this max index of the base, right? That's what we're expecting. And then, you know, if li is less than 0, or li is greater than, less than 0 or greater than the length minus 1, then we're out of bounds on this as well, right? So, from base, from file name. So this is from the base folder, this is from the file name. So we've added this little assert here, and local index, we have a calculation for local index, and then local index will kind of be plugged in right here. So local index, right? Local index has a lookup here. And then also, we do all this checking on local index. Well, that means we want to use it right here, right? And so we'll see if we get a runtime failure after writing the code like that. So we're hoping that we do, because we see this PAINT5D. I don't know what's up with that, so let's try that out and see what we get. It could be that we have our calloc wrong. Our calloc might be wrong. Maybe, no, that is our calloc, right? We calloc and then we pack the characters into the string. So no, I'm not expecting that to be the problem. But yeah, let's just go over here. Let's do P for pattern again, and then O for output, and see if we crash. And yes, out of bound from the file name. Okay, cool. So we know we were missing a character, right? So we're not surprised. I is greater than or equal to this, or less than or equal to the base. The base is the length of the base minus 1, so this should be valid. Else, you know, I in this range, and if I is in this range, then the local index, how is the local index being calculated, right? It's the local index that is wrong. So if the max index was 7, then this will be 8. 8 minus the previous max index would give us 1. Got ya. So to get this to start off at the correct index, this actually needs to be a minus 1, right? Right, and that isn't quite obvious as why that is, but it is, right? Right. So if I was previously 7, and then because we were in here, and then we hit the max index of, we're over the max index of this was 8, right? And the max index is inclusive, so that means this can't be 8 here, it would have to be 9. 9 minus the previous max index, 9 minus 8, that's 1. But we want to start off at 0, so we got a minus 1. So, at vid IID 0096, time is 12:23. And we'll just make a note, integer ID, vid IID. Right here, we have a minus 1 fix to var li. Right, that's what we just did. And 12, let's say 13 minutes. So 13 minutes, because it'll be 13 minutes by the time we type this. Okay, so let's re-describe what we just did here. We realized that this needs a minus 1 right here. Because this max index here is inclusive, right? So this part here, if, say, the max index is 7, we go 1 to 7 ends up, 0 to 7 ends up here. And then once we get to 8, the first value, 8, outside of that max index we get here. Well, if we have 8 minus the max index of 7, that gives us 1, but we want to start off at 0, so we have to minus 1, and then we're correctly positioned. So let's prove that that actually works by giving it a run really quick and seeing if we get the correct file names now. So let's just cross our fingers, I guess. Okay, so over here, we're going to do P for pattern, O for output, then we're going to close it. Then we're going to go into the mod folder, and we see, oh look, PAINT5D.png. So now we have the correct file name. However, we're still going to have the same gibberish that isn't correct, right? So yeah, we still have this checker pattern. So we still have to figure out why the heck that is, and I don't really know why. My thought is maybe we know that for whatever reason, the CPU pixels are not even being deleted, right? So this draw default offset, right? CPU pix, we have these PAINT5D pixels here, and we're drawing on them, right? We're erasing over here, right? Max component is 512 times 512 times 4 minus 1. So we're definitely going through a sizable chunk of those pixels and clearing them, and then overwriting them in this loop here. But we're not seeing black, and we're not seeing the pattern that we're expecting. So the question is, if we're not, so we don't even have to inspect this put function, because and we already have unit tests for this that say it's correct, and we're not even seeing black, right? We did a return statement after we cleared this out to see if we would see black, and we don't even see black. So the next question is, are we saving the correct thing, right? That would be the next thing. So let's see, save file PNG, and we see we have tau depot tau depot CPU pixels, and then we have pixname CPU pixels. So it looks to me that we're saving the correct allocation of memory. So that just confuses the heck out of me as to why it, right? What is going on here? So something, when we save it, something must be going on here. So between saving the file and that output pattern, oh, you know what happens? We do the pattern, and then when we want to save the file, it reinitializes. And however it's reinitializing, it is deleting the pattern and putting the default pattern back in place. And that's why we can't see it. Okay, cool. So we're pretty sure we know what's going on. So now the question is how to fix it, right? We don't even know why it's reinitializing like that, because it shouldn't be reinitializing anyways. So let's take a look at that. Like, it's okay for it to initialize with that default fill pattern, but what's not okay is for it to keep on reinitializing and resetting that default pattern. So we got to figure out, like, what that's all about. Like, how is that even happening? So we're going to go here, and we're just going to press some keys and look at the logs and see what's going on here. So if we press 1, and we press any of these keys, we see PAINT5D init call count, right? Init already up to date, so yeah, for whatever reason, something is causing this extra init call. So we're gonna try to figure out where that is coming from. I thought we fixed this before, so that kind of irks me that we fixed something and now we have that bug showing up again. Because we're trying to make code more robust. Like, if we fix it, we want to make it more robust so that doesn't happen again. So find all, and see where this is coming from. Init call count ++, and then some type of print thing. Init call count. Yeah, so let's go over here. Or actually, I want to know what this is. Yeah, that's not, doesn't look like helpful. Okay, let's see what this is. So, PAINT5D init, and the init call count ++, and unlikely recursion guard. Okay, cool. Where is... So, load initial texture data. That would be a thing. So, we have this spam guard here, right? And init call count, it says it's a spam guard, but then when we look at it, it's not guarding from being spammed at all. Right? If this is a spam guard, then where's our exit? Where's our early exit, right? And I don't see that. Yeah, this is more of a recursion guard than it is a spam guard, as far as I'm concerned. If it says OK PAINT5D already up to date, but then it doesn't actually exit, right? It's like, okay, you're already up to date, but then we're going to run all this code, and this code has some texture modifying stuff in it, right? So now the question is there a private version of this function already? It doesn't look like there is, right? So if we look for the string right here, init whatever the heck, Yeah, it's only here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do U32 or avoid AAC 2020 PAINT5D init, and we're going to take a lot of the code, this OK thing here. We are now initializing PAINT5D, right? So we're going to take everything from down here, because this is our spam guard here, and it's not actually doing anything, right? So the next editor equals dex eddy, right? So the next editor to load is actually the current editor. The next editor is the current editor. So this is keeping track of swapping editors right here. And we're saying we're swapping from editor 1 to editor 1. And if we're swapping from editor 1 to editor 1, we want to say, okay, everything's up to date. But then we actually want to actually have the guard in place. And the guard is not in place. So we want to take all this stuff, all this crazy stuff, not worry too much about what it does. We're just going to copy it or cut it out. We're going to paste it in the private version of the function. And before we implement the spam guard, we just want to confirm that the code still runs properly, right? So let's clean it up a bit. And also, what's up with my syntax highlighting here? Yeah, I don't know what was up with that. Like, I'm like, I know my code isn't very colorful, but I know I have color in my comments, don't I? So yeah, if, so we still want this to work. Now, to get it to work, all we're going to do is call the private version of the function. So right before we exit, we're just going to be like, right here, we're just going to call the private version, or the, yeah, the private version. So this is going to be lowercase. Okay. So we're expecting the same functionality as before, right? We're expecting nothing has broken. So let's give this a shot and see what happens. See if it compiles. We gotta make it sure it compiles, make sure it behaves properly. Oh, also, I just have this habit where when I make functions, when I make functions, I put 2 semicolons at the end, and C code, when it's being compiled very pedantically, will not allow you to do that. So I always do that. It's just a habit. Okay, let's give it another shot. Okay. So, I mean, everything still seems in place. Alright, and when we press these buttons, we see that's being reinitialized and whatnot. Okay, cool. So, the spam guard is not written completely, right? So we want to do else. I don't know if it's like something that we just forgot about or what happened, but let's fix it up, right? So, right, and also, where is this coming from? Where's the other section for this? Did I? Oh, I cut it and pasted it. Yeah, so this doesn't even belong here, right? Alright, that belongs here. Okay, so we're gonna make a note here that vid IID 0096 actually implemented. Let's not do that, that's weird. So we're actually going to implement the init guard here, right? Because it wasn't actually implemented. And then we'll make a note of that, right? We'll make a note of what this commentary is all about. So I can't believe we didn't do this. So, you know, at vid IID, right? There was a reason why we had a guard on the initialization. But for some reason, we just flew over our head for some reason, right? So, if we are already in the PAINT5D system, and we send a command to switch to PAINT5D, we do not want to reinitialize the system. Right? So we have a little timestamp here. We're going to say it one more time for the camera. So we're going to say 26 minutes and how about 36 seconds? Or we can wait for 42 just to be cool. Okay, yeah. So we're actually going to implement the init guard, so prevent reinitialization if the system is already in focus. So if the PAINT5D editor has already been loaded and you're actively using that editor, if we find a command has been invoked to switch to PAINT5D, when we're already on PAINT5D, we don't want to reinitialize the system. So if the next editor is the current editor, then, so hold on, so next editor, current editor, right? So if the next editor is the current editor, that means you did a meaningless switch command where you're like, hey, switch to this other editor. And what's the other editor? Oh, it's the same editor you're in. Well, if that's the case, then we don't want to reinitialize. And, because we were seeing that from the keyboard, like every time we press any single hotkey, like the whole system was reinitializing, and we don't want to do that. And when it was reinitializing, it was deleting the pattern we set in the pixel data, and so we couldn't see it in the texture when we saved it out to a PNG file. So we're going to hope that this is our saving grace, that we're done with this video. So let's try to get this running and see if that is the solution. Okay, so here we are. That was slower than I expected. That. Okay, I don't know what that was about. Just some kind of quirk. Hopefully. So we're going to press the P key for pattern. P. Then we're going to press the O key for output. And also, if we look at the console, we can see that PAINT5D is already up to date, right? And then we draw the pattern, and then PAINT5D is already up to date, and then we see that we are doing the output. So here's our pattern command, and here's our output command right there. Let's zoom in here. So zoom in some more. There we go. So here's the pattern command, and here is the output saving command. Both of them have been executed. So let's Control-C to close the program and inspect in the mod folder and see what paint5d.data looks like. And we're going to hope that this looks proper because I am sick of this. A black screen. That is not what I wanted. Did we forget to remove the return? Let's open this with paint.net. Make absolutely sure this is a black screen. No, it's not a black screen. Oh, it's transparent, right? But we can definitely see that structure, right? We can see, it's kind of hard to see, but we can definitely see that quad tree-like structure in here. That represents, like, if you want to see what we're talking about in PAINT5D data, so open up PAINT5D data. So if we look at this, you see this structure here? That is what is over here on this monitor, right? Like, you can see it. You can see one of these cells. You can see how it's being subdivided. It's kind of hard because everything's transparent. But because it's just the border, we should be able to fill it with color, each one of the cells. So let's just get some red and use our fill tool. So where's our tool? Where's our fill tool? Where are you? Oh, it's on the other screen. So let's just use a fill bucket tool and just go bam, 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 bam. And also, let's remove the tolerances here before we do this. So let's make the tolerance 0. And the flood mode needs to be contiguous. And also, where the heck is anti-aliasing? Let's full screen this. So let's turn off anti-aliasing. Okay. And remember, we only put tiles around the border, right? And so that's why we see this going on here. All right, yeah, excellent. So when we get down here, we can keep on inspecting. And then eventually you get down here, and the tiles are 1/4 the size of the screen. And because they're 1/4 the size of the screen, we don't have any area to fill, right? So this is this layer, that's that layer, right? So that is correct, right? And then this bottom pixel here is the configuration pixel, right? So here's, if we look at, let me color it in. So not that, Control Z. PAINT5D gets worse and worse as it gets newer, as they make more and more versions. At some point, your software is done. Just saying. So, but nobody wants to buy, I understand, nobody wants to buy the new version of the software that now has less bugs, right? People don't want to buy a new version of software unless it has new features. What do you mean? You're paying for fixing the thing that I've already bought, right? Nobody wants to do that, and that's why we have this software bloat where older versions of programs end up horrible. But anyway, so we can see that these last tiles, this is the largest tiles of the tile exponent. This is tile exponent 7, and all of these colors, all these 3 pixels right here, this orange, yellow, and green pixel, they represent 3 different layers where you can set exactly one tile because it's a gigantic tile, right? And then let's color this black. So this pixel right here is a configuration pixel, and that's how we're going to determine the color palette to use. Also, when we look at one of these pixels, each one of these pixels is actually storing 16 different sets of data that look like this. But all of the tile sets, the default tile sets that we've configured, are all set to the exact same value, and so they're overlapping over each other, and that's why we can actually see something coherent here, because otherwise we might not even see any kind of coherent pattern here. But the pattern looks coherent, it looks awesome. Let's just kind of fill in some more stuff to make sure that everything is in place. That nothing weird is going on. I mean, we have test code that already said that this would work, but it would be nice to just use the fill tool and just have some fun and be like, hey, fill this in. I mean, that looks good there. Right, so this is the data for the top right tile. Right, and then let's go over to the bottom left tile and try to use the fill tool, right? And we're just making sure that all the data, that everything's uniform, right? That everything we're doing here is completely uniform, and it sure looks like it, but, you know, we probably don't have to do this, but why not enjoy ourselves and just have a little fun here? You know, have some fun here and just play around, and also get a little bit more sanity of mind that everything is indeed correct. So yeah, everything looks pretty good here. Let's fill these in. Yeah, I absolutely hate this new kind of cursor thing, right? It's so you can change the color like this. I absolutely hate it. Because it always gets in my way. It always gets in my way. Because I'm always doing things where I'm messing with like a few pixels. And yeah, it's always in my way. I absolutely hate that new feature of PAINT5D. Anyway, so when we color it all in, it sure looks like the data structure looks correct, right? This data structure is looking correct, and I am happy. And we are done with part number 2 of the Pixel Saver. The Pixel Saver is working, and we're getting that default pattern in there. So we are done with this part. And we're just going to stop the stream here and say hey, we did a thing, awesome. It works now, cool. We'll back it up, we'll push it up to Kanji Coder, and then we'll slack off for the remaining 2 hours of the day. I guess since it's still 10, we really do have enough time where we could do some more push-ups. And it's still food time. I still think it's food time. So I'm going to get some ice cream, but before I get some ice cream, I'm going to do some push-ups, right? So we're going to reward ourselves with exercise, which is kind of like the opposite. But I think when I accomplish something and I get that dopamine hit, and then I reinforce it with exercise, then you can associate that exercise with a positive thing rather than associate it with punishment, if that makes sense. So I'm experimenting on myself. So let's look at our push-up screen here. Let's do 40 more. So yeah, let's do 40 more of these. So that's going to put us at 200 for today. And we'll add 40 here. So that'll put us at 200. And then tomorrow we're not going to do any push-ups. Tomorrow is going to be our break day where we just don't do that. So the week total, if we add 40 to here, we're going to get 690, right? Okay. So once again, going back to the bottom of the screen, I don't know how the YouTube thumbnail is going to work, so I just want to pause at the end like this. So, because this is an interesting kind of graphic, right? Like, this looks interesting. It would make a nice screenshot for the video if we can get that in there. And also, I don't have my chat window up, so I don't know if anyone's talking to me right now. I usually don't have people talking to me, but let me check my chat window before I go, in case there's somebody randomly popped in and I missed them, and that would... Oh, God! Stop! Stop! Yeah, thank you for, yeah, whatever. Twitch list. So, no, I want to, yeah, I just want to check really quick, make sure no one is messaging me. That's not what I want to do. Twitch dash. I gotta stop saying, One thing at a time. Okay, yeah, nobody's messaging me. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're out of here. And then what are we going to do next? Well, we're going to keep on working on writing the shader code, because now we have confirmation that we can get some type of meaningful pattern into the data, into the well, this is actually still CPU side. We still have to upload this to texture memory somehow, and we're not doing that yet. So we should probably make that an agenda item. I'm going to do that off screen, just because I want to pause here on this screen so that I have this for a thumbnail for YouTube. I think that's how it works. I think YouTube does the beginning of the video, the middle of the video, and the end when it's finding thumbnails. I don't know. I think so, so I'm going to stop here. Okay, later.